Whew. Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. Taking a little trip down the woods again. After all, I've got to keep familiarising myself with this path because, unfortunately, with my little place of work, the roof's caved in. So, yeah, that was kind of awkward. But that's not why you called. Who said that was because of you? Shut up, you. I'm not that heavy. I didn't do that much damage. No, it was the storm that did that. Anyway, I want to talk more about the inquiry. The rape gang inquiry. I'm done being censored and filtered. Now, as we all know, this inquiry is perhaps the biggest thing that's happened to the United Kingdom, as nobody ever wanted to have one of these. Or at least none of the people in the houses of treachery. I mean Parliament. Or maybe I was right first time. And when you have loathsome creatures like Jess Phillips, who decide that it's better to laugh at the issue rather than actually take it as seriously as a bloody funeral, you know you have a problem. Mind you, the Labour Party is completely filled with all sorts of creatures you'd expect in a horror movie. Jess Phillips is merely one of those people, with all the likeability of a taxman on payday. I can tell you right now, there is no love lost for the Labour Party, that's for sure. Especially when Keir the traitor Starmer decided to liken the inquiry into the rape gangs to jumping on the bandwagon of the far right. They aren't just evil, these people. They are the very incarnation of evil itself. It wouldn't surprise me at this point if instead of seeing Satan, if we wanted to do a deal with the devil, I wouldn't be surprised if Keir the traitor Starmer showed up at my door instead. Oh, I'll promise you safety from the rape gangs, but you'll have to spend the rest of your days in prison for it. Hey, you never told us you wanted to be safe from all the Islamic people that are responsible for this. I can't stress enough. If the devil took human form, it would be in the form of Keir the traitor Starmer. I mean, I'd honestly rather have Satan in power, to be honest. At least he'll be honest enough to tell you you're going to get fucked over. But enough grilling Keir the traitor Starmer. We'll do plenty of that shit later. Now, I also want to bring up the Tories, because they also have to share the burden, as it were, of responsibility and accountability, because they also had the opportunity to bring this inquiry to the fold. They had every chance to make this inquiry go big, and instead they also chose to be complicit. So don't think it's just Labour to blame for this shit, and don't think I've only got my crosshairs sighted on Keir the traitor Starmer. These rape gangs have been operating in our country for decades. The Tories were just as capable of stopping this as the Labour Party was. As I said, they chose to do nothing. Much like Naz Shah would say, they decided to shut up for the sakes of diversity. Meanwhile, anybody who dared to speak out about this, in spite of the threats, they were locked up. They were persecuted. Hell, here's something else for you. Apparently, 4,000 people, 4,000 children, I believe, they ended up getting arrested for prostitution when they were involved in these rape gang issues. 4,000. So they were more interested in locking up the children who were being victimized by these rape gangs, which are of predominantly Pakistani Muslim heritage, rather than deal with the rape gangs themselves for fear of being called racist. And this, of course, as we all know, is despite the fact, and you could even say it with me at this point, Islam is not a race. Nobody wanted to talk about it. Nobody wanted to call it out for what it was. Nobody had the decency to protect the kids. And now all of a sudden, Keir the traitor Starmer and his nonce party, I mean Labour Party, or again, maybe I was right first time, they want to come out and say, well, we really was on the side of the children, you see. Honest, we really were on their side. We really wanted to protect them. No, you didn't. You protected the rapists. You protected the Muslim community, the Islamic community, because you were afraid of being called racist or losing your jobs. But of course, the mainstream media won't tell you this. You know the drill, folks, because say it with me. It doesn't suit the narrative. They were not on their side. They were on the side of the rapists themselves. They want to try and take credit. They're all clambering all over each other like a fucking pile of dead bodies. They're trying to clamber over and try and stick their flag at the top and say, you see, I'm taking credit for all this shit. It's ironic, I'm actually standing on a hill. Anyway, they want to sit there and claim all the credit for something they never fucking did. Do you know the real people who are heroes? The real people who helped expose this shit? I mentioned it in my last video. I'm going to fucking mention it again. Tommy Robinson. He brought this to light. As well as the other victims, the whistleblowers who came out and had the balls, whether up here or down there, or in my case both, to be able to come out and say it how it is. They called this out for what it truly was. The Islamic scumbags, the rape gangs, going out of their way to violate children. And as I said before, the media and the lying sacks of shit in the police, they all wanted to say, oh, it's the Asian community, when it is not the Asian community. How many Japanese do you see doing this? How many Chinese do you see doing this? How many people from Thailand do you see doing this? How many people from Vietnam do you see doing this? How many people from North or South Korea do you see doing this? I can't say it's zero, because I don't know that myself. But what I do know is they certainly ain't the fucking majority, let me tell you. Anybody who wants to claim credit for this shit that is not one of the victims, that is not Tommy Robinson, that is not on the side of those children, can take one of these and swivel, quite frankly. Because they are as deserving of that credit as I am of the title Mr. Fitness. And apparently the inquiry's already been concluded. Why was it so quick, I wonder? Let me think about that. Is there something they don't want us to know about? That's the thing. I suspected this shit would happen, deep down. I suspected they would do everything they can to keep this inquiry as minimalistic as possible. There were some Labour MPs who were sitting in the houses of treachery who were basically shaking in their boots. They were shitting themselves at the mere idea of this open inquiry, this national inquiry into the rape gangs. I wonder why. Forget about skeletons in the fucking closet. I bet this wanker was one of the people in the closet. There isn't any way in hell that this inquiry is not going to do grievous damage to the Labour Party. There isn't any fucking shot that the Labour Party is going to be able to stand up after this. I reckon they've got about 6 months left, if they're lucky. But this whole case is going to blow their reputation clean out the water, just like that. All those victims, including Sammy Woodhouse. Sometimes I keep thinking it's Woodhill, but I don't know. It's one or the other, I know that much. But I digress. It's people like Sammy Woodhouse. It's people like Tommy Robinson. It's people like all those survivors that I've seen in some of these rallies I've even been to, no less, that had the guts to stand up on stage and tell their story of the most atrocious things, of how they were basically passed around like easy meat. I mean, Islam doesn't really need Bonnie Blue at this point. I mean, look at the amount of people they've been taking for themselves. We'll talk about Bonnie Blue at some other point, but obviously not in this video. But it honestly disgusts me how much contempt our police and our governments have had towards these victims of these rape gangs, where these people who were reporting serious sexual abuse by these predominantly Pakistani Muslim men, how they reported this and they weren't treated with care, decency, dignity and respect. They were treated as whores. They were treated as liars. They were treated like they were out for the Islamic community's blood. They actively did everything they could to cover this up. They did everything in their power to make sure the public did not know the true scandal of this atrocity. But let's stroke number one. Let's reverse the roles here. Let's say a group of white people went to Pakistan and they decided that they were going to take advantage of the girls up there. Do you honestly think that this would be kept quiet? Do you honestly think that our media would just keep button-lipped about this? Of course they wouldn't. It would be worldwide news. It would receive worldwide coverage. The men would be universally condemned, as they should be, and they would ultimately end up being made an example of. But because it's the Islamic community raping and violating our English girls and even Sikh girls, like, they don't discriminate what religion. They don't care if they're Christians or Sikhs or Hindus or whatever. Islam goes around, they take whatever girls they feel they're entitled to. Well, last time I checked, women aren't your property, Islam. I know that must hurt. It must hurt being told that women aren't your property. But that is the truth of the matter. Women have never been your property. Women are nobody's property, and vice versa. Men aren't women's property either, and they're certainly not Islamic property. But you seem to think that they are. You seem to think that you're perfectly entitled to take white women as sex slaves. Let me remind you, you're not in your third world shitholes. You're not in Pakistan, you're not in India, you're not in Sudan, you're not in fucking Bangladesh or wherever, you're not in South Africa, you're not in Kenya or wherever. You're in the United Kingdom. That's a Christian country, not an Islamic country. You are not entitled to take our women as easy meat. I'm willing to bet if Keir the traitor Starmer had this happen to any of his kids, oh, I bet then he'd be furious. Because that's the thing with a lot of these career politicians. Unless it happens to them, they're not really interested, quite frankly. They show about as much interest in that as I have in watching paint dry. It actually makes me sick to think that these jihadists consider themselves freedom fighters. Whose freedom are you fighting for? If you're technically free to live in your third world shitholes and live under Sharia law and do whatever you wish there, are you really freedom fighters? Or are you fighting to crush other people's freedoms? Because that's the only way I could see you as a freedom fighter. You're fighting other people's freedom to crush it into the ground. And frankly, I don't give a fuck if it paints a target on my back bigger than Tiger Stadium. At the end of the day, this needs to be called out for what it truly is. An Islam who has 84% of the rape gang crimes to their name. 84% of all rape gang cases were committed by Pakistani Muslim men. I am not going to call them British Pakistani. I mean, granted, some of them bred here, and unfortunately now we have some of our own homegrown rape culture in Islam. But the cold bitter truth is, how would they be able to become British Pakistanis if they didn't come over here in the first place? That would be like me calling myself an Australian citizen, even though I've never even visited Sydney. Shame really, she's a really nice girl. Anyway, that's basically what it would be like. It would be like me saying I'm an Australian citizen even though I haven't visited Sydney or any other place in Australia. And it honestly is extremely scary, bone-chilling to think that Keir the traitor Starmer would rather side with a third world death cult from the 7th or 5th century. I don't care which, to be honest. They still belong in the medieval times. But he would rather side with them than he would side with his own indigenous people. He'd rather side with Davos than Westminster. He would rather serve the WEF than the English people. So even though I heard that he was opening up this rape inquiry, as I said before, he wasn't doing it because he wanted to, he was doing it because he was effectively forced to. And if he had his way, we would never hear anything about it. If he had his way, we'd all be told to shut up for the sakes of diversity. And I'll tell you right now, I think Keir the traitor Starmer and the whole of the Tories and all of the mainstream media owe Tommy Robinson a monumental apology. Not even a massive apology, because I don't think that quite covers it. He deserves an astronomical fucking apology from the entirety of the United Kingdom, or at least those that weren't siding with him. Because he went and busted his balls. He destroyed 20 fucking years of his life to try and bring these rape gangs to the forefront. He has went through hell and back, and then back to hell again, just to do this for us. He is a national hero, and yet a national hero spends 18 months in prison, or sentenced to 18 months in prison, for releasing a fucking film about Jamal, who wasn't as innocent as the mainstream media wanted to make out he was. Jamal had a history in that school of lying, of hurting other kids, of stabbing other kids, even knocking a kid unconscious. Yet he was telling the truth, and every other witness in that doc was lying. And when this documentary came out, which released secret footage of these people disclosing NDAs and told that they were given hush money to keep quiet about what happened at Almondsbury School, the courts and the government did not like that. They wanted that video taken down because it exposed them, not because they didn't like what was being said, but because it made them look bad. The media, of course, won't admit that, nor will Keir the traitor Starmer. You've got a better chance of squeezing blood from a stone. But he was forced to remove that documentary, and if he hadn't have done that, when he did, at the end of May basically, he would have been sent back to jail again, just like that. This is how much the establishment are terrified of people like Tommy Robinson. It's ironic because you would think, with all the outrage that Tommy Robinson causes because he mentions all this stuff and gets people angry, whether that's his intention or not, you would almost think they would want this. But no, of course, because it's Tommy Robinson, they must do everything they can in their power to suppress his opinions, suppress his views, and suppress his documentaries. But what they still fail to understand, even after all these years, is that the more you try to suppress someone, the louder their voice gets. They targeted him, it didn't work. They targeted his family, it didn't work. They targeted him again in front of his kids, it didn't work. They've targeted Lucy Connolly, it didn't work. They've targeted anybody that has tried to speak out about this, and it hasn't fucking worked. No matter how hard they try, we will always speak out about this, and we will never let them forget it. Thank you. It first started off as a whisper, and no one could hear. And then it became a voice, and some people began to sing its tune. Then entire towns were saying this, and they tried to suppress the voice, and then it reached other towns and other cities and other parts of the country, and then all of a sudden this thing became more than just a voice. It became a song. It became a verbal and somatic melody that to this day can be heard across the entire fucking world. And if you need another story, Fiona Goddard had to bring justice to 50 men, or some of them at least, who violated her. Fiona Goddard was plied with drugs and booze and then passed around some of those Muslim men like easy meat, as I've said before. There are some people who have gone through unspeakable things that would tear the spirits of ordinary people. And I'm not talking gin or vodka, although maybe that's what they plied them with. I'm talking it broke their mental spirits, their mental fortitude down. And some even had to bear the children of these vermin. Those that have had the guts to stand up and mention their story, they are all heroes. People like Keir, the traitor Starmer, they're the antagonists, the villains, the big bad evil guy, in Dungeons and Dragons terms, that you would basically associate as the source of all evil. I tell you what, if this started happening in the 1800s, we would have fucking dealt with this. I guarantee you, if this was happening in the 1800s, our men would have run this shit out of the town and the bloody country. Just like that. These people would have been removed. The trash would have been taken out. Instead, our namby-pamby governments have let this open wound fester. They have let it fester and let the people suffer on the back of it. They are directly responsible for this. They had all the power to nip this in the bud, and they chose to protect an ethnic minority for the sakes of diversity, equality, and inclusion. They did not think of the indigenous people of the United Kingdom. They did not think of the indigenous people of each town. They thought about their careers. They thought about their positions. They thought about themselves. These selfish, traitorous bastards who would sooner send our children to the wolves than protect them. But here they are, they want to claim all the credit. They want to say, we've taken a stand on this. No, you didn't take the stand. You stood against us. You stood against all those survivors of the rape gangs. You didn't do fuck all while they were getting violated by every known Islamic scumbag in this country. I am not afraid to say what I'm saying because, and you can say it with me, I'm not going to sugarcoat a motherfucking thing. I'm not going to mince my words. I'm going to say exactly how it is, and I will do my best not to bullshit you. The way I slice it, as I said, if this happened a couple of 100 years ago, we'd have taken out the trash. We would have dealt with these vermin there and then. But because this has happened basically nearer the end of the 1900s, the 20th century, and at the beginning of the 21st, we have had politicians that are about as strong as a shot of malt. These people are spineless, gutless cowards. And it is their cowardice that has let this wound fester. It is their cowardice that has allowed these rape gangs to continue to go uninterrupted, unmolested. It is them who have directly caused some of these children to off themselves because they couldn't bear the burden. They couldn't bear the fact that the police and the government had turned their backs on them. There was one girl who was even murdered and diced up and put in a fucking kebab. Oh, God. You'd almost think this was alcohol. No, it's some shitty ice kick. What is this, lime and lemon? Ugh. Terrible. Anyway, the fact is, if our government had a pair of balls, whether up here or down there, or in my case both, to actually deal with this problem, we would not be in half the shit that we're in right now. If they actually had the guts to deal with this country would not be on the verge of exploding. Because that's what it is right now. It is a literal ticking time bomb. I said it before and I will say it here again. Within the next 4 to 10 months, there is going to be a civil war or a violent revolution. That's the cold, bitter truth. And it is simply because our career politicians and our two-tier police have chosen their sides. And they are not on the side of the English people. Likewise, the Irish police and the Irish government have chosen to protect the illegals over the Irish. And they wonder why there's been riots in Derry right now. Riots in Derry with petrol bombs being thrown. Now, let me be clear. I don't want a riot. I don't want a revolution. And I don't want a civil war. I wouldn't ever condone it. But you have to understand, not everyone has the patience of a saint. Not everyone is going to have the clear line of thinking. Not everyone is going to be thinking within the confines of the law. These people have had enough. These people have decided that if they can't get justice from the two-tier police and justice society, if they can't get the job done with their current government, they're going to take matters into their own hands. Simple as that. And for Boother, I believe I've got his name right. I try to remember it. Thinking is hard. Civ. Anyway, Boother went out of his way to say this is sectarian violence. No, it is not sectarian violence. What this is the Irish people are fed up and sick and tired of your pathetic fucking excuses. They are sick and tired of you pussyfooting around the problems and not doing your job. The Irish people have decided if you're not going to do your job, they're going to step in and do it for you. You can sit here and say, oh, it's racist violence. Oh, it's sectarian violence. It has no place in our society. You know what? As much as I try to imitate you and take the piss out of your voices, it wouldn't surprise me if that's how you think right now. Because you have all the IQ of a destroyed watermelon, quite frankly. This isn't sectarian violence. It is not any kind of violence that you would associate with the so-called far right. What it is actions meet consequences. Like I said, I don't condone the riots, I don't condone the violence, but I completely understand why they're doing it. They're doing it because they've given you enough chances and you have made more excuses than Keir the traitor Starmer, and that's fucking saying something. And since they've decided you aren't going to do your job, since you serve your government rather than your people, they've taken to the streets, just like that. And now you see what's going on. Most of these people are peaceful, but obviously you're going to get a few hardliners that are going to go out of their way to do what they're going to do. And you can't blame them wholly, because at the end of the day, this was fueled by your inaction. The only people you have to blame are yourselves. Likewise, if a revolution kicks off here in the United Kingdom, Keir the traitor Starmer and his whole nonce party have only got themselves to blame. Same applies to the police. And I'm not afraid to say that. Because as I said, I've got the balls in both places. I've got the guts, quite a lot of them, but I've got the guts to say what needs to be said. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. If a revolution or a civil war breaks out, our two-tier police, our two-tier justice, and our two-tier government will only have themselves to blame. As far as these rape gangs is concerned, the moment we found out that this was happening, they should have taken action. But they instead protected the Islamic community because they didn't want to be called racist. Communism at work, folks. Ugh. I am never buying this shit again, let me tell you. Jesus Christ. But the bottom line is, this rape gang inquiry, this is probably going to be the nail in the coffin for Keir the traitor Starmer. I can't see any way in God's earth, in God's kingdom, and I'm not even holy for all I know, but I can't imagine anywhere in God's kingdom where you get out of this with a positive outlook. Your chances of a positive outlook are worse than my chances of going to the moon in a rocket. You have got no chance of being seen as anything as a vile, sectarianist, traitorous, criminal protecting, terrorist funding bastard. And if you think that people are going to stand behind you for this, no chance. No fucking chance. You've got a better chance of squeezing blood from a stone. And anyone that does vote for the nonce party, I would actually make it policy that they'd have to go see their GP and get themselves checked out from the neck up. I would make it fucking policy, quite frankly. Because anybody that can even think about, let alone actually vote for Labour at this point, has clearly lost their minds. They have completely lost it. They've gone off the deep end. Labour's finished. Labour's fucked. Keir the traitor Starmer has no way of getting out of this one. Forced to make the inquiry, forced to make U-turns, people in his own party shaking like there's no tomorrow, like somebody shaking a fucking maraca. My God, I'm surprised that he hasn't just melted into a puddle right now for all the fear that he is exuding. But here's where my thoughts are. Those innocent girls, those poor victims of these barbaric, subhuman scumbags in those rape gangs. That's where my thoughts are. And my thoughts are also with Tommy Robinson, the man you fucking cunts persecuted for 20 plus fucking years. 20 plus years. He has been dedicating himself to this fight. He has dedicated himself to telling us about these rape gangs. But when we tried to talk to you, it went in one ear and out the other. Well, that's what's going to happen when you ask for our votes. It's all going to go in one ear and out the other. You spurned the very man who was trying to tell you about what was happening. The Islamic takeover of the United Kingdom. And you didn't want to listen. You wanted to facilitate it. You want to accelerate it. I can think of no worse human beings, if I can even fucking call you that are sitting in those houses of treachery right now. If I had my way, I would class you as a completely different class of people. The subhuman traitors. Because that's all you are. You protected the vermin of this country. You protected the enemies of the state. You persecuted the heroes of the state. You let those girls get violently beaten and raped because you didn't want to be called racist. I may have words that strike like a forked-tongued snake right into your neck, delivering the venom. But I'll tell you right now, the people are done waiting around for you. When that revolution kicks off, you only have yourselves to blame. And maybe, when that happens, maybe there'll be some semblance of hope for those victims of the rape gangs to get justice from the people who spurned them.